During a family Zoom call, my SIL made a joke about people who marry into money and forget their place. She didn't realize I was recording. I used that clip as the opener to a TED talk about financial misogyny. When it went viral, she sent me a cease and desist. I replied, "It's public record. You made yourself the message. I'm 38, live in Indianapolis. I didn't grow up with money. My dad worked at a local factory, my mom cleaned houses. I got a scholarship to Purdue, worked at a diner on weekends, and then got into a grad program for finance. I always had to hustle to get where I am. After years of working in corporate, I started my own platform focused on helping women understand money, credit, debt, investing, all of it. It wasn't flashy, but it made a difference. Slowly, I built up a following. Started doing webinars, then some local workshops. Eventually, I had a solid online community. That's when I met Marcus at a fintech conference in Denver. He stood out because he didn't try to impress anyone. We talked during one of the sessions and just clicked. I didn't know anything about his background until later. He comes from a family with real money, not just upper middle class. I mean old money. His family has a historical house in Charleston, vacation property in Jackson Hole, and his grandfather's name is on a hospital wing. You get the picture. Marcus didn't care about any of that, which is why I married him. But his family? That's where the cracks started to show. His family has these monthly Zoom calls. Started during the pandemic, but they kept doing them. They say it's to stay close, but honestly, it always felt more like a status update competition. His parents, siblings, in-laws, cousins. Everyone joins. They talk about country club stuff, travel plans, renovations. I kept my camera off most of the time, just listened. Marcus's older sister Veronica was always off with me. She'd smile, say polite things, but you could tell there was something behind her eyes. She has that way of talking where she sounds sweet but always gets a little job in. One Christmas, I made homemade gift baskets for everyone. She looked at it and said, "Oh, how quaint. You really are creative with your budgeting." That's her. Quaint. Budgeting. Like she's trying not to laugh. Still, I never snapped. I was raised to keep the peace. So this one Sunday, we're on the usual Zoom. I had just finished a recorded video for one of my online finance classes, so the recording setting was still on. I didn't even realize it until later. Mid-call, I got a phone call I had to take. Work-related. I stepped out of the room but left the Zoom open. Camera off, muted. While I was gone, someone asked where I went. Then Veronica said this. She probably had to go count her sponsorship pennies. You know how people who marry into money get, they forget their place. It was like she'd been waiting to say it. Someone chuckled. Another voice agreed. And that was it. A sentence. A sneer. But it hit me like a slap. I stood in the hallway listening. My face went hot. I couldn't believe what I heard. I walked back in the room 10 minutes later like nothing happened. They didn't know I'd heard. They didn't know the session was recorded. But I knew. And I kept that clip. That's the thing. I didn't storm into the next Zoom and demand an apology. I didn't call her out in the family group chat. I let it sit. I kept going to the calls, smiled through the conversations. Let them talk about ski trips and renovations and weddings. I stayed quiet. But something started building inside me. That clip? That voice? It became a reminder. A symbol. Because it wasn't just about me. It was about every time a woman was told to be quiet about money. Every time someone said, "Don't talk about finances, it's not polite." Every time a woman's success was labeled as luck or marrying up. Veronica had no idea what she'd handed me. 3 months later, I got an email from an organizer for TEDx Chicago. They'd seen some of my webinars and wanted me to give a talk. Topic: financial misogyny. I said yes immediately. I spent 2 weeks writing and rewriting. I wanted to hit hard, but stay grounded. Then I remembered the clip. I debated it. I really did. I thought, is this too personal? But I kept going back to it. It was real. It was what women hear in boardrooms, in families, in marriages. And I didn't have to say her name. The clip was 14 seconds long. Just her voice, her tone, her words. You know how people who marry into money get. They forget their place. Then I walked onto that red and looked at the crowd. I said, this is the voice of financial misogyny. Not a stranger. Not a politician. A family member. The room was silent. I saw people lean forward. I told my story. Not just mine, but stories I'd heard from women who were shut out of conversations about money. Women who were punished for making more than their husbands. Women told they were too aggressive for negotiating raises. The talk ended with a simple message. We don't forget our place. We build it. It blew up. First local news picked it up. Then national. Women started sharing the clip. Thousands of comments. Then the email came. Cease and desist. From Veronica's lawyer. She said I used her voice without consent. That I embarrassed her. That she was being harassed and recognized by people in her circles. She demanded I take it down, issue a public apology, and pay for damages. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. His reply was short. No visual, no name, recorded in a public family meeting. Public domain. Then I wrote back to her myself. It's public record. You made yourself the message. I never said her name. Never showed her face. But her voice? Her tone? Unmistakable. She still hasn't spoken to me. Hasn't been on a Zoom call since. Her husband called Marcus and said he was sorry. Said it was out of line. Funny thing is, her teenage daughter follows me on Instagram now. Sends me messages about financial tips. She doesn't know what her mom said. Not yet. But one day, she might. And maybe then Veronica will realize, when you try to put someone in their place, you might end up showing the world who you really are. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. After the TEDx video went viral, I stayed busy. My email inbox was flooded with invitations, interviews, podcasts, panel discussions. Women from all over were writing in to share their stories. A lot of them were just like mine. Some were worse. And through it all, I stayed focused on the message. But I should have known it wouldn't stop with a cease and desist. Veronica doesn't like losing control. 2 weeks after my lawyer shut her down, I noticed something strange. My social media accounts, especially Instagram and LinkedIn, started getting flooded with weird comments. Things like, this woman is a fraud. She married rich and now pretends to be self-made. Ask her where her funding really came from. Some had no profile pictures. Others looked fake, new accounts, no followers, clearly bots. But a few were real people. Women I'd never met who seemed to be from Veronica's world. I clicked on one of them. A woman named Paige who followed some of the same people as Veronica. Private school mom circles, yacht club photos, designer bag hashtags. The whole look. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just mad. She was organizing. Marcus got a call from his mother. Not to ask if I was okay. Not to talk about how inappropriate the Zoom comment had been. No, she said. I think maybe it's time. Aya, stop stirring the pot. People are saying things. Veronica's name is being dragged through the mud. I asked Marcus what he said back. He told her she dragged her own name. My wife just turned on the light. That should have been the end of that. But it wasn't. Because then my biggest sponsorship pulled out. A company I'd worked with for over a year emailed me, saying they needed to step back from partnerships that create division. They didn't say it, but I knew. Someone had gotten to them. I later found out Veronica's husband sat on the board of a nonprofit that worked with the same company. It wasn't a stretch. The next family Zoom? Full of fake smiles and tight voices. Veronica wasn't there. But her brother James was, and so was her cousin Thomas. Halfway through the call, Thomas said, "So hey, my name, how's that influencer lifestyle going? Turning family drama into a brand?" I paused. Looked right at the camera. It's going well. When people try to silence you, Sometimes it just makes the message louder. No one said a word for 10 full seconds. Then James mumbled, "Let's move on." I logged off early that day. Marcus stayed on. Said nobody talked for a minute after I left. But they still didn't apologize. Not one of them. Yeah, you read that right. 3 months after the TEDx talk, I got a notice from the IRS about a tip sent in suggesting I hadn't reported my business income properly. They wanted documentation on 3 years' worth of earnings, deductions, everything. I've always done things by the book. I had every receipt, every spreadsheet, every tax return. My accountant was furious. This was targeted. Someone wanted to scare you. He didn't have to say her name. We both knew. That's when I got mad. Not just hurt mad, not bitter mad, real mad. Because this wasn't just shade anymore. This was war. She wanted to ruin my reputation, my business, my livelihood. So I started digging. I remembered the accounts that had attacked me. Some were bots, sure. But others? Real people. And some of those real people had connections. Friends lists, tags, photos. I kept track of names. Took screenshots. Cross-referenced LinkedIn profiles, Instagram tags. Then I found something. A private Facebook group. Real Housewives of Hamilton County. I wasn't a member, but one of my followers was. She DM'd me out of nowhere one day. "Hey, I'm in this group and they're talking about you. Thought you should see this." She sent me screenshots. One post, clearly from Veronica though the name was blurred, read, "She used a private family moment to build her brand." Should someone like that be trusted to give women financial advice? Just a thought. Another woman replied, "I know someone at company name. Maybe they should be aware of the kind of person they're sponsoring." Then it all made sense. The social media bots. The dropped partnership. The IRS tip. She wasn't just offended. She was orchestrating a takedown. So now I knew. Veronica hadn't just run her mouth once on a Zoom call. She had been working behind the scenes to smear me. Quietly, strategically, with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The Facebook group confirmed everything. This wasn't just jealousy or embarrassment. This was a full-on campaign. And it didn't stop with the posts I'd seen. My follower, let's call her Rachel, kept sending me updates. I didn't ask her to. She just said, "Women like her count on people like me staying silent." Turns out, Veronica had been calling me dangerous, claiming my platform gave women unrealistic ideas about money, that I was encouraging women to leave marriages, that I had misled the public about how I built my business. She even floated the idea that I had faked my degree. It was wild. And it would have been laughable, except it was working. The lies were planting seeds in the right ears. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to be reactive anymore. I was going to go public. I called up a friend who worked for a well-known podcast that focused on women, money, and power. I'd been on her show once before, and it had done really well. This time, I told her everything. Not just about the Zoom clip. Not just the cease and desist. I told her about the smear campaign, the social media harassment, the IRS tip, the Facebook group. She listened, then said, "You sure you want to do this?" And I said, "Yes." It's time people saw how far some women will go to tear others down, especially when money and power are involved. The episode was called "When Family Tries to Ruin You, A Financial Feminist Speaks Out." It dropped on a Monday morning. By Tuesday night, it had over 2 million downloads. The episode struck a nerve again. But this time, it wasn't just strangers reaching out. A woman named Tara emailed me from her personal Gmail. She said she used to work as Veronica's personal assistant about 3 years back. Said she'd heard my voice on the podcast and recognized it. Then she wrote, "I know she's targeting you. And I have proof." She attached PDFs, photos, email threads, voice notes Veronica had sent her years ago bragging about manipulating other moms, exaggerating rumors to get people dropped from committees, even getting a woman blackballed from a charity board after a petty disagreement. It wasn't just me. This was her thing. Veronica had made a sport out of destroying other women's reputations if they didn't play her game. And now, finally, I had more than just a voice clip. I had receipts. My lawyer and I reviewed everything Tara sent. He said one sentence that made my stomach drop and my pulse race at the same time. This might be harassment. Possibly even defamation. We drafted a formal letter to Veronica. No threats. Just facts. We laid out the evidence, screenshots, fake accounts traced back to her IP, messages from her old assistant, timelines. We stated clearly, if this continued, we would be pursuing legal options. We gave her a choice. Walk away, or we go public with everything. The letter was sent. 5 days later, we got a reply. Not from her. From her husband's lawyer. It said, my client is unaware of any such behavior and is deeply disturbed by these claims. He will be discussing them privately with his wife. That was the last we heard from him. And that's when the real family cracks started to show. Marcus got a text from his brother James. Veronica's losing it. Apparently, once she found out I had evidence, she spiraled. Screamed at her husband. Tried to blame her assistant for stealing private messages. Claimed she was the victim. But it didn't work this time. Her husband knew something had shifted. He started pulling back, financially and emotionally. One of Marcus's cousins texted him and said, he's staying in their beach house alone this week. We didn't gloat. But we didn't reach out either. Let them sit in it. Let it unravel. Just when I thought it might die down, one more twist hit. Rachel, my Facebook group insider, sent me a screenshot that stopped me cold. Veronica had posted a long message in the group. Not an apology. A new lie. I've been the target of a jealous campaign by someone who married into the family for status. She's threatened me legally, hacked my accounts, and now she's trying to destroy my marriage. That was it. I saved it, sent it to my lawyer. And then I started writing something new. Not another podcast. Not a TED Talk. A book. Working title. Know Your Place. I didn't set out to write a book. But after everything, after the fake accounts, the sponsorship sabotage, the IRS tip, the public lies, I realized something. Veronica didn't just want me quiet. She wanted me erased. She wanted people to question everything I'd built, everything I'd said, everything I stood for. And somewhere along the way, this stopped being about just me. This was about the message I was trying to share. About how women are treated when they talk about money. About how easily a powerful woman can be painted as difficult, greedy, ungrateful. So I started writing. Not to expose her. Not at first. But to tell the truth. Know Your Place was published 6 months later. I changed names. I blurred identities. But the stories? The recordings? The screenshots? All real. I told my side, what it felt like to be the outsider, the target, the woman they all underestimated. And I told other women's stories too. Women who reached out after the TED Talk. Who whispered things they were too afraid to say out loud. I didn't write it angry. I wrote it honest. The book did well. Way better than I expected. Within 2 weeks, it was a bestseller. Within a month, I was on morning shows. By the end of the quarter, it was picked up for international release. And that's when the mask really slipped. Turns out, Veronica's husband read the book. He recognized things. Little things, quotes, conversations, stories only someone close to her would know. She tried to deny it. Told him I was lying, that I made it up. He didn't believe her. He didn't want to anymore. Because while I'd been busy defending myself, he'd been doing his own digging. He found out she had funneled money from one of their joint accounts to pay for social media services, specifically, ones used to launch fake comment campaigns. He found a second phone she'd used for anonymous accounts. He even found out she'd paid someone to write a fake review of my business on a finance watchdog site. He filed for legal separation 2 weeks after the book tour ended. I didn't plan to see her again. But life's messy. A few months later, we were both invited to a birthday party for one of Marcus's nephews. It was at her parents' house, in the backyard. I tried to keep my distance. Played with the kids. Stayed on the edge of things. But Veronica walked straight up to me. She looked thinner. Worn. Her hands shook a little. And she said, "You ruined my life." I looked her dead in the eye. "You did that all by yourself." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there. Quiet. Hollow. Then she turned and walked back to her car. She left the party without saying goodbye to anyone. Marcus's mom came up to me an hour later and said, "I'm sorry." First time I ever heard her say it. I won't pretend I did everything perfectly. I used the clip without warning. I turned a private family moment into a public message. I made her voice famous without her face. That's on me. But I've learned something about survival. About silence. Silence might keep the peace, but it also keeps you small. Veronica tried to drag me back into that silence. And in fighting her, I came real close to becoming just like her, focused more on revenge than truth. I almost forgot why I started speaking in the first place. But the women who reached out, the ones who cried during my book signings, who told me they finally left toxic jobs or spoke up to their husbands, they reminded me, this wasn't about taking her down. This was about rising even when they tried to bury you. Marcus and I are stronger than ever. We moved out of the city, closer to the country. I still run my platform, still speak, still write. But I've scaled back a little. I choose peace more often now. Veronica? She's living with her parents. Her husband finalized the divorce 6 months after filing. He kept the house. She lost access to the private trust. Word is, she's taking time for herself. And the rest of the family? Some still avoid me. Some pretend nothing happened. But the truth? They listen now. When I speak, they pause. Because they know what happens when they don't. Because they know. I will press record. You don't get to insult someone, sabotage them, try to ruin them, and then cry victim when they fight back. Veronica tried to make me the villain for telling the truth. But the truth doesn't care about feelings. And I don't forget my place anymore. I own it.